Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today. My name is Morgan Robinson and I am a school-based mental health therapist with Access Counseling. I've been with Access for almost a year now and I'm excited to talk to y'all today about anxiety and what this means for y'all as teachers and school staff. So some of our learning objectives here, what I'm going to do is first just going to provide a brief overview of what anxiety is, and then I'm going to talk about what anxiety can look like in students in your classroom and providing some interventions for managing that anxiety and what that might look like for remote learning. I'm going to be breaking this down by age, so kind of looking at our elementary school students and then our middle schoolers and high schoolers. And then finally, I'm going to be talking about how anxiety is relevant for our SEL standards. Okay, so what is anxiety? It's normal for every human being to experience some sort of anxiety. It is the emotion that we experience that helps motivate us to get things done in our lives. Now, when we have too much anxiety, it can be debilitating to the point that even though we know what we need to do to make our anxiety go away or decrease, the anxiety is so bad that we're stuck in our tracks and we don't do it at all or we procrastinate about it, whatever that thing is that's going to help the anxiety go away. Now, anxiety can look like excessive nervousness or worrying in which the individual struggles to control that worrying. And the nervousness may be out of proportion to what's happening in a person's life. So, for example, if a student says that their friend said something and maybe they're complaining to you about what happened, and they're saying things like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? Do they even like me? What do I need to do to get them to be my friend again? You might catch yourself thinking like, who cares? The things that they are saying are indicative of anxiety, and while it may not seem like a quote unquote big deal to you, it is a big deal for them. And then finally, there are some physical symptoms that can occur to alert you that you're experiencing anxiety. So this is something that your students can experience as well. And those are restlessness or feeling keyed up or on edge, being easily fatigued, difficulty concentrating or mind blanking, irritability, muscle tension, and difficulty sleeping. And these symptoms are right out of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders, the 5th edition. Okay, so now what does anxiety look like? I've included some pictures on this slide to better showcase what anxiety could typically look like, and you might be thinking of some of your students who may look like this, who may look this way sometimes. So temper tantrums and younger kiddos expressing anger are the two top ways of kids expressing anxiety. In our middle schoolers, it might look like typical stress, like with the kiddo in the top right corner. So the younger kiddos may say they feel mad or angry, and the middle schooler may say they feel stressed out about whatever it is that's going on. The middle schooler could also be saying that they're feeling mad or angry. And again, the anxiety can be out of proportion to whatever the current stressor is. So what does this look like for our high school students? So I've got a few more pictures on this slide of what anxiety commonly looks like in our older kiddos. So in the top left corner, we've got someone shaking their leg, or maybe they're drumming their fingers, like in the bottom right corner. They may also be irritable, like the kid who's kind of in the middle. And then they could also be spacing out. And spacing out can happen for any age for those who experience anxiety. So sometimes a student who is not paying attention isn't necessarily doing that on purpose. So also when it comes to anxiety, this can also look like procrastination. And this procrastination can happen for a variety of ages. I'm thinking typically the middle schoolers and our high schoolers. So I really like this picture of what the procrastination cycle looks like. So you might imagine a kid is thinking about a homework assignment that they need to do. They start making excuses for why they can't do the assignment right now. And in a little bit, I'm going to go over what those excuses could potentially look like. So because they've made some excuses, they continue to procrastinate on the assignment which then leads to feeling guilty about not completing the assignment. Maybe it was a group project and they didn't complete their part, or it's even just an individual assignment and maybe it was meant to prepare them for a test. So then they might panic about the assignment, which could lead to more excuses like, well, I haven't done it this far, I'm going to fail anyway, so it doesn't matter if I do it. And then from those excuses comes more procrastination and then more guilt and more panic. So there are some unhelpful rules and assumptions that underlie procrastination. It's not a matter of a student being lazy or defiant. Sometimes it could be, but if you have a student who may be procrastinating or not turning in assignments, rather than thinking about the behavior, maybe we think about the motivation behind that behavior for why it is happening in the first place. So with needing to be in charge, you might have students who are thinking things should be done my way, or I shouldn't need to do things other people tell me to do. So maybe this student doesn't engage in traditional learning styles and may need a different way of handling assignments. For pleasure seeking, life's too short. They may be thinking YOLO, but this applies to students who are more focused on living in the present rather than thinking about their future, especially if they haven't had support from others in thinking about their futures before. Fear of failure or success. Some students may want to do things because it's got to be perfect, and then they avoid doing those things because they don't want to fail at doing it. Others may be thinking that they don't want other people to expect more out of them if they do a good job on something. For low self-confidence, they might be thinking, I can't do things because I am incapable. Students may not even feel good in the first place about themselves, let alone about their schoolwork. So if you've got a suspicion that one of your students may be lacking in confidence, maybe consider speaking with their parent or guardian during conferences or whenever, and helping that parent consider what the kid is good at. Being good at something like sports, art, or whatever can really help with increasing confidence and self-esteem in our kiddos. Fear of uncertainty or catastrophe. I am better not doing anything than risk it going bad. This is kind of related to the fear of failure and just needing to do it perfectly. And then finally, depleted energy. I'll do it tomorrow. I'm too tired. Kids are expected to do a lot these days with maintaining their schoolwork and social lives. And social lives is now going beyond just, the extracurricular activities after school and hanging out with friends and such. Like it's a job to keep up with their social media as well. You may also have students who have jobs or who have to help their parents take care of younger siblings if their parents work a lot or are just kind of uninvolved. So not only can these rules and assumptions be applied to procrastination, but they can be applied to anxiety as well. So now you have a general idea of what anxiety may look like in your students. So now let's talk about what you can do with that. The first tip here is belly breathing, and this can be used with all ages. You may notice sometimes that we breathe more through our chests than we do through our stomach. So it's really important to be aware of how we are breathing to help this work. I usually walk people through this by telling them to put a hand on their stomach, and if they feel their stomach going up and down, then they're breathing correctly, as weird as that may sound. So you'll inhale for about 4 to 5 seconds through your nose, making sure that your stomach is going up, and then exhaling about 5 to 6 seconds out your mouth while simultaneously feeling your stomach going down. There are lots of different videos on YouTube to demonstrate this for remote learning, so if you don't feel comfortable with doing this over the video yourself, you might consider browsing YouTube to see which may better suit your students' needs. My next tip may be particularly helpful for those of y'all with younger students, but remind yourself to stay calm when you're speaking with them. I say this may be helpful for the younger students because they typically present their anxiety as anger, but this could go for any age as well, like anxiety or not. So our initial gut reaction to somebody yelling at us is to yell back, and we're not doing anything productive to solve the issue. So if you can speak with your students in a calm and cool tone, even when they are angry, that will automatically calm them down in some type of way. You might not see it right away, but it helps to remain cool in those moments. Another thing that's going to be helpful to remember for all ages is taking a break during the school day, even if it's just 5 minutes. Every single person is adjusting to school being online right now, and we may be looking at school being back in person here soon, but we need to have a little bit of time to give our brains a break. Not only can this help with your students' anxiety, but it could help with yours as well. I've also included on this screen a link to a YouTube video as an additional resource to help some of your parents with managing their child's anxiety at home. So I've got a few more tips for managing your students' anxiety on this page, and one of those is validation. All of us need validation. Kiddos need it too, no matter what their age is. So for example, if you leave work and need to talk to a family member, partner, or a friend about how rough of a day you've had, you typically don't want to hear, well, that doesn't sound so bad, or get over it. They may not understand what it's like to be in your position, so while it may not be that big of a deal for them, it's still a pretty big deal to you. This goes the same for students, like I kind of touched on earlier. If a student is talking to you about something going on and they sound frustrated, you might just say, you sound frustrated, or you sound sad, or you sound nervous, just to kind of depending on what you're hearing. Something y'all might hear from parents is, well, when I was in school, or when I was their age. That's not helpful for validating feelings either. If someone says they're feeling stressed out with the homework, maybe they need a little extra support to get the homework done. Feelings are always valid. The thoughts behind the feelings may be irrational, but feelings are always valid. So we need to provide this validation to our students, and that's going to help with not only decreasing their anxiety, but it's also going to help with raising their confidence as well. Another tip I got for you is full body muscle relaxation. So for the middle and high schoolers, you might be able to do the quote unquote quick way to do this to help them relax, in which they identify where they are feeling the anxiety in their body. So for example, say maybe their shoulders. So they squeeze their shoulders really tightly. They might do both at the same time or one at a time. Hold and release. Then they might do that again 2 or 3 more times until they're feeling more relaxed. The younger ones may not necessarily know where in their body they can feel their anxiety, so you might walk them through a full body one, starting with scrunching up their faces, balling their fists up, scrunching their toes, stuff like that, kind of working from head to toe. So the other picture y'all see on here is the papered ball. The middle schoolers I work with love this one in particular, but again, it could be helpful for any age, and they can do this right at home. So all they have to do is scrunch up a piece of paper and throw the ball around the room, aiming at the walls or the ceiling, not aiming at other people or breakable objects. So if you're teaching this to a younger one, I would suggest that parents be in the room so they can emphasize, like, only be aiming at walls and ceilings. But yeah, just have them throw it around. Get the energy out of their bodies. If they're feeling a certain type of way and they can identify exactly what's stressing them out, you might consider telling them to write on the paper what it is that's stressful for them, and then scrunch it up, throw it around. So lastly, not everybody enjoys journaling, but that would be the other suggestion that I would make for the older kiddos for managing anxiety. Or using some sort of planner to help them stay organized for when assignments are due, or if they need to write down reminders of when to start assignments or study for tests. Basic organizational skills can go a long way to prevent anxiety from becoming debilitating. Here are some of the SEL standards that might help us put into perspective of why anxiety may be important to talk about in the schools. I decided to stick with competency A standards of self-awareness because while anxiety could be looked at in the other standards, before we're able to manage anxiety or look at anxiety in other parts of our lives, we have to be aware that anxiety is what we are experiencing in the first place. So for our elementary students, they may be identifying anger or feeling mad as one of their basic emotions, and they may identify you or maybe someone in the front office as their trusted adult to help them talk it through. For our middle school students, anxiety or nervousness is typically able to be identified at this point, and seeking appropriate support could be a trusted adult at the school or at home, or it could even be friends that they speak with to help them manage everything. And then for our high schoolers, anxiety can be a pretty big thing in their lives at this point, whether it's just anxiety in general, test anxiety, anxiety about their futures, etc., etc. So they may go to adults to help them out, or they may go to their friends. If you turn out to be the trusted adult in someone's life, just keep the things we went over earlier in mind to help them manage their anxiety on their own. If you notice they might come to you pretty often starting out, but then if you're able to kind of give them some quick tips on how to manage it on their own, you may notice that they don't come to you as often afterwards. Thank y'all so much for joining me today. I know this was a lot of information, but if you think one or more of your students might benefit from working with a counselor on their anxiety, talk to your front office staff about how to get the referral process started with Access Counseling. We will take care of the rest by getting in touch with the parents or guardians to get an intake appointment scheduled. So that's all I have for y'all today. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, please feel free to reach out to me directly, and I would be more than happy to connect with you. Continue doing great things, and good luck, everyone.